morning, Sayali.
Good
Welcome
morning, sir.
to the interview, and we hope that we should see your name in of the successful candidates of the civil services this year. And
Thank you, sir.
I wish to see you as the brand ambassador of sarees as a diplomat,
Yes, sir.
which is very fascinating that sarees of India. Uh, any specific sarees which you would definitely like to promote as a diplomat of the country?
So, the sari is not homogeneous unit per se of our culture. It is a very diverse legacy that India has from thousands of years. So, I do not have any preferences as such because there are so many various fabrics and so many different styles. There is Kanjivaram, then there is linen, there is handloom cotton. There's very from uh, the simplest to the most complex weaving patterns. We have all the types. So I'm not really biased towards any single firm. So I'll be wearing a wide range of saris even in my day-to-day life.
What is the meaning of Sayali?
Sayali is a name of a flower in Marathi language. It belongs to the jasmine family. It is a white color flower without any specific fragrance.
And which is the most, which is also called the queen of saris, which is that sari of Maharashtra?
So the Paithani saris, in my knowledge, is called the queen of saris. It has distinct peacock patterns on its pallu, and predominantly silk fabric is used to weave it.
And which is the area where Paithani is being produced in large
So
number?
there is a town in Maharashtra called Paithan. So Paithani originates from there. And now there are different local small centers also emerging, like the Yeola village. So the Yeola Paithani is becoming famous now.
You know, Sayali, that agriculture is the largest employment giver sector in the economy, and handloom is number two. And if women wear more saris, you are not only wearing sari, you are giving employment to more rural people. Should not look
Yes, sir.
gender biased, but if the 50% of gender is female, a shift toward the Indian culture and tradition, don't you think it will help the country economy also?
Yes, sir. And to add to this, it's not actually going back to our culture as such, because Indian women in every family, be it rich or poor, elite or middle class, every woman in India has a collection of saris in her cupboard for different occasions. So even if you see women and girls wearing Western outfits, they do have the inclination for saris. Secondly, a vast majority of the population that you mentioned, for example, the women farmers or the women weavers, or even our aunts and the other elderly women still wear sari on a day-to-day basis. So if we have to really calculate in terms of the economy, it is a great boost. However, like there is a great demand. However, the demand for high-end saris, like you mentioned that the weavers are the second most weaving is the textile industry is the second most employing industry. The high-end saris take a lot of time and effort because handloom is very manpower intensive, and for those kind of saris the demand is very less because they range from 50,000 to 1 lakh and so on. So that kind of incentivization we need to do. So
Anything you know
this
about the Handloom Reservation Act?
pardon me, sir. I
Handloom Reservation Act.
no, sir. I will have to read about this.
There's a lot of war between handloom and power looms. What is that about?
So, power looms help to manufacture fabrics and textiles on a large scale mass scale. Handloom are
Okay,
the
can you make Python on power loom?
Yes, Paithani can be made on power looms. The cost of such Paithanis is also very affordable and less compared to the handlooms, but the weave or the pattern that emerges from it is low quality.
Okay. Sayali, you must be aware of the present situation in Afghanistan.
Yes, sir.
USA has been there for almost last 20 years and has
Yes, sir.
lost the life of almost 2,400 soldiers. They had a date, 18th September, to vacate Afghanistan. Now they have preponed it to 31st August. Don't you think that even they are getting so desperate to leave the country in a manner that it again can create a lot of nefarious values all over the world?
So the Afghanistan, as is called the graveyard of civilizations, we have witnessed it yet again. Now that the US is leaving after such a protracted conflict in Afghanistan, um, as you said, it is not going to create a nefarious world in the future. It has already started happening. We have already witnessed the Taliban attacks and seize of some cities and towns in Afghanistan, and Iran's involvement in talks with the Taliban and the Afghan government. So this does showcase that a new kind of world order will emerge through this, in the sense that geopolitics of the region, of our neighborhood, and the world would change. So the US withdrawal um, may may look as irresponsible or
Okay,
being
you have been a student of geopolitics. So, do you feel the USA has achieved its objective of to be in the Afghanistan, and they have been successful in achieving for what they have landed there?
So, in my understanding, the objective of US in being involved in Afghanistan was the Cold War background and uh, in the context of that era. Having said that, the loss of US lives on Afghan soil over 20 years may not have been very fruitful for them in the Asian context. Also, today the challenges are different. For example, the rise of belligerent China um, incentivizes the US to shift from land based conflict to more of
Yes, and
ocean based.
you have given Indian Foreign Service as a first option. Now, suppose
Yes,
you
sir.
are the foreign secretary of the country. Now, what would be your approach toward the Taliban?
So, the Indian line of thought or the foreign policy that Indian government has followed till now is not to engage with any terrorist organization per se, and only engage with the legitimate government in that country. Having said that, right now multiple stakeholders have emerged, and if I am a foreign secretary of India, I would engage with all the stakeholders in that country, and I would keep in mind the national interests of India so as to keep the tranquility and peace in the region in context of Pakistan conflict or the Kashmir issue that we are facing.
Our foreign minister recently visited Doha. Doha, there some representatives of the Taliban are there. Is it right on the part of the foreign minister to meet the Taliban representative? At the same time, we are uh, openly saying that we are with the Afghanistan government.
So there are different tracks of diplomacy that a government follows. So track 1.5 and track 2 diplomacy can be engaged on a simultaneous parallel level. So I think dialogue is a good way with both the stakeholders.
Okay, Sayali. Vishwajit. Uh,
Thank you, sir. Hello, Sayali. Is it Sayali or Sayali?
Sayali.
Okay, Sayali. So, I was just going through your tab. What I could see is you did your MA in political science. Is that it? Hello, Sayali. Am I audible to you?
Hello.
Sayali,
Yes,
am I
sir.
audible to you now?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
No issues, no issues. Yeah. So let me repeat. What I was saying is, I was going through your tab. So what I saw is you have done your MA in political science.
Yes, sir.
So, but you have written that it took you 4 years to do that.
Yes, sir.
Was that a 4-year program, or you took 4 year for the 2-year program?
Sir, I completed it in 2 years. It is a 2 year program. The reason being, first year I did when I had registered for the program in 2017. Later on, 2 years, my UPSC prelims date and the date of the exam clashed twice. That is why I could not appear for the exam. And then in the COVID lockdown period, the dates were such that it was favorable for me, so I could give the exam and complete my course.
Okay. And in between, you also did diploma in geopolitics. How, was it a distance kind of course from Deccan Education Society?
So it was not a distance course, but it was a evening course. So I used to complete my engineering college in the morning, and I used to attend these classes in the evening. And it was a 1 year course, so I could complete it along with my engineering.
Okay, that is 1 year. But I think you started doing that after your engineering, I guess, because 2016 you became engineer. That must have been in June somewhere, and in June only you started in 2016. So I don't
No, sir.
think did it overlap?
Yes, sir. I finished my engineering in 2016, and geopolitics course I did between 2014 and 15. So I graduated my geopolitics course in 15. So it was my third year of engineering when I did my geopolitics course.
But you are written here in the this thing. It is 2017.
So I will have to check. I think it is a mistake on my part.
Okay, in your DAF, I am saying you are written year of passing 2017.
Yes, sir. I think I will have to check on that. I think it
Okay.
is a mistake on my
Yeah,
part.
yeah, yeah. Just see whether if it is some mistake or something. Anyway, what I was wondering is what made you, uh, get inclined towards this geopolitics during your engineering. Just assume that it is during engineering, and you are then doing MA in political science. So computer science itself is a very emerging field, and in fact, in international relations, perhaps most important thing today is the computer science and information technology and artificial intelligence. So what I was wondering is what made you, shift your attention to these things.
So after my board exams of 10th, I was very clear that I want to prepare for the civil services. And my mother is a very active news listener. So news was a big part of my childhood upbringing. So I used to be always very aware of political happenings and every news that
Hello.
hello.
Riley,
Yeah.
we could not
Sorry, sir.
hear you.
There are some glitches on the
No, no, no.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So news led to my inclination to interest in international relations. While choosing an optional, I started my preparation during my engineering years itself. While choosing, I chose political science, and geopolitics course happened to be a
So
sort of
I would like
accident.
to stop you here. And then, yeah, Siley, I would like to stop you here. So the basic questions that arise in here is, in first place, why did you go for computer science? You could have just continued in Ferguson and did your political science.
Yes, sir. So, UPSC being a very uncertain and unpredictable exam.
Okay, so plan B you're talking about. It's okay.
Yeah.
Let me come to the another question. See, now there has been a big debate and big mahol is being created against around the issue of reservation in Maharashtra. So, be very specific in what I'm asking. See, I would like you to compare the EWS reservation and the Maratha reservation, which was there and which was contested in Supreme Court. Please just contrast and compare these two systems, point wise.
Yes, sir. So, firstly, EWS reservation pertains to the economically weaker sections. It is based on the economic criteria. SCBC or the Maratha reservation that Maratha caste is seeking is a caste-based reservation. EWS can stand in the court of law on the basis that they have produced certain data regarding the economical weakness of certain sections of even the upper caste and class. Whereas the Maratha caste data shows that it has been capturing majority of the political leadership and even the industries and the farming sector in India, cooperative sector in India, in Maharashtra. So that has led to it being debated in the court of law, and even the courts have rejected the basis. So if so that these are the two major differences.
So, see, so what I could sense is that, according to you, the Maratha reservation cannot be, or it's very difficult to justify it on the grounds of our legal and constitutional and social aspects. But do you also suggest that EWS also, has a similar rationale and strong substantiation as compared to the original reservation system for SCs and STs?
So, I would like to answer it in two parts. If we have to discuss EWS reservation in the sense of principle, that the principle that we had in mind while drafting the constitution, then maybe the principle would not apply because 50% ceiling will be cracking. However, the constitutional amendment that was done to bring in EWS reservation is very strong, as they have amended Article 15 and 16 itself. So, if you are talking from a legal point of view or from the court of law point of view, it stands very strongly in the court of law.
So, is it good for the society to have EWS reservation?
So, in itself, reservation cannot be said to be good or bad. Its consequences and the output or the outcome side has to be seen. Right now, our focus is on only on the input side or the incentive side that we are providing. But we have not created a parallel system or capacity building of the masses so as to ensure that they are taking the benefits of reservation. I would like to give you a small example. When I was in Jammu and Kashmir, or when I had visited some rural parts or tribal parts, the tribals did not even speak my language, even in Maharashtra. And they did not understand a single word I was saying. They did not know that they live in India. The forest was their home. And they belong to the ST and the SC castes. So they do not know that there are such provisions for them. So this is a level that I say that capacity building or a parallel system of facilitation has to be done so as to ensure that reservation gives us greater benefits.
Okay, you mentioned Jammu and Kashmir. With what purpose you had gone to Jammu and Kashmir? With some college attachment, or what was it? You also mentioned about Koda in your tab, yeah.
Yes, sir. So Jammu and Kashmir, I had visited Doda district. I was working on a youth engagement program with the district administrator of Doda. So the district commissioner, Sagar sir, had engaged a team of me and other like-minded colleagues. So we were a team of 9 to 10 people. The objective of this program was that in Jammu and Kashmir there is a huge mismatch between employment and the educational
No,
qualifications.
my question is, was the program from the college side or some other personal visits you are saying?
No, sir. It was from an NGO based in Pune, Nan Prabodhini. So Sagar sir was an alumni of the institution. So he had
Okay.
called us.
Last question, Sayali, from my side. Uh, uh, I would like you to comment on the effectiveness of United Nations very briefly. Okay, effectiveness of United Nations, especially after post-COVID.
Sir, there have been some hiccups and some high points in the UN's working in post COVID. The high points would include the vaccine diplomacy that we have. The low points would be the failure to curb the conflicts, violence happening in the world, even in a time when people are struggling to even survive. So, these two comparisons, I would say, from my side.
Okay, Sajid. Thank you. Satya
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Saili, so your hobby is about studying saris of India. So, do you know how the pattern of wearing sari has changed after British rule in India?
Yes, sir. So initially, sari hails from the Indus Valley civilization period, or even before. There have been records found. That time, a sari used to be worn in three parts. There was the Stanapatta, the Uttariya, and the Antariya, which is the lower part. Slowly, even in different parts of India, it is worn differently. It is sometimes two piece, or it is akhanda vastra like 9 yard sari or a 6 yard sari, so on. During the British era, sari used to be viewed by the British as a symbol of um, vulgar barbarism or tribalism of India. So they started civilizing the sari format, and then it got a little anglicized, and the navy pattern of sari emerged after the British rule, and it was popularized by the royal women of the princely states in India.
And what was the role of sari in bringing or in generating nationalism in India?
Sir, sari was a big part of the khadi movement as well, and Bharat Mata. I think there was a painting by I am forgetting the name. I'm sorry. The painting of the Indian map wearing a sari. So the symbolization of India as Bharat Mata or God Shakti. So that is one part. So this is, I think, I can recall this.
And do you know that sari was used by the delegates of Pakistan whenever they used to visit other countries, but it stopped due to some certain regions. Do you know about this history?
Sorry, sir, but if I have to make a logical inference from it, I think just to distinguish the origin of the Pakistani culture, which they deny that it is apart from India, but it has been the same because Indian subcontinent has been a homogeneous unit since long. So I think because of that reason, the Pathani style of salwar kameez must have emerged.
And how you relate this phenomenon with the concept of hegemony by Gramsci?
So Gramsci's idea of hegemony was to manufacture consent. So I think when you're wearing a sari, which is a symbol of the Indian subcontinental culture, you are also kind of submitting to the same culture. So to create a new idea of culture, or to to create a war of maneuver or to create a war of position. I think that is the reason they must have changed their attire so as to break this idea of cultural hegemony.
Okay. And what is the meaning of the term the absence of a state that we saw in various newspapers during the second wave of COVID?
I'm sorry, sir, I did not hear the term properly.
The absence of a state.
absence of state. So I think on the contrary, the state has re-emerged because without the state acting as a coordinator, a facilitator, and even at times a provider, the COVID fight would have been more chaotic.
But many commentators, political commentators, are saying that India should not uh, present its image as a emerging superpower due to this mismanagement or management of COVID-19. Do you agree with this viewpoint?
So I think all the states across the world have come out of this fight, as in they are fighting it still, but they have emerged as minimized states in the sense that every country, even the United States, had its low point and its high point. A few months ago, it was struggling to provide basic amenities to its people because the case numbers were huge, case loads were huge. Right now, they are on the forefront of vaccination. So it would be wrong to put it in black or white as to India portraying itself as a superpower just on the criteria that there has been mismanagement in its COVID fight. I think COVID being a black swan event, no country is perfectly capable of handling it in a perfect manner. So, India being a superpower can be justified in multiple other ways also.
So,
Like,
so, what Indian states should have done between first wave and the second wave of COVID-19?
so, what we could have done better is that we could have anticipated the second wave based on the expert team of doctors that we have. The task force should have met very frequently, which did not happen after the first wave. When the lockdown ended, a lot of activities were not monitored or scrutinized. For example, the election campaigns or weddings or huge mass gatherings or religious gatherings. That could have been a second aspect. And so the third thing was capacity optimization or building capacity in terms of medical professionals, nurses, and even the equipmental or medicine side and the infrastructural side like hospitals and beds.
So you are from Maharashtra, and the difference between the urban and rural areas in Maharashtra are very significant.
Yes,
So,
sir.
like, what should be the policies to bridge this gap?
So there are three types of regions in Maharashtra right now. There are the urban centers. Then there are rural centers around these urban centers which do not look rural at all. There are multi-speciality hospitals in these villages, etc. And then there are the very backward regions, villages in Maharashtra, owing to climatic factors also like lack of monsoon or drought or other significant factors. So the policy change that Maharashtra may need to do is to create pull factors in these villages by setting up of industries or cottage industries or incentivizing such employment in these villages which would cater to these villages. For example, if there is a drought stricken village, uh, we can incentivize handicraft culture there, or we can incentivize um, millets or such crops there, so that there is a pull factor. And then we need to reduce the push factor also towards the cities, which includes better standards of living, which includes better opportunities for work. So on both levels there needs to be a policy change.
And recently, the cooperatives were in news. So, how do you think this model of cooperative will help Maharashtra further to develop itself? Because cooperative has been a front runner in Maharashtra.
Yes, sir. Along with Gujarat and Karnataka, Maharashtra has a very flourishing culture of cooperatives. However, the cooperative structure in terms of the leadership that has predominantly emanated from politicians in Maharashtra. That creates a kind of conflict of interest, and that has led to mismanagement of the cooperatives and a huge corruption also. So, to further strengthen cooperatives in Maharashtra and even across the country, there needs to be a proper election mechanism for electing the top leadership, which should be alienated from political class so as to keep it independent. Secondly, there has to be more transparency in the working. And thirdly, from the point of view of awareness, like we have the primary agriculture credit societies, PACs. So PACs need to be more aware. The KVKs or the extension services can be deployed for this, and they need to be more aware of how to engage themselves through the cooperatives. So Amul is a very good case study for that matter.
Ranjay sir.
Hello, Sayali. So you have
Good
also clear. Good afternoon. You have also clear qualified NABARD exam.
Yes, sir.
So can you tell me that how does NABARD work for uplift for the rural areas? Work for the uplift of rural areas?
Yes, sir. NABARD is a development financial institution created by the NABARD Act of 1982. It was created to single-handedly give attention to agriculture and rural development. Its major function is refinance. So what NABARD does is the budget outlay that our government has, or the different types of funds that the government gives. For example, Agriculture Infrastructure Fund or DIDF, FIDF. The nodal entity of these funds is NABARD, and through the state cooperative bank, NABARD refinances this to the PACs through the DCCBs, district cooperative banks. So it uses a three-tier structure for disbursing the credit. Secondly, NABARD is also doing developmental work for financial inclusion. The SHG bank linkage program is by far NABARD's most successful story. It has incentivized weavers and artisans through SHGs, JLGs. So I think NABARD is working on both the fronts, economical as well as developmental.
Okay. So you used one term, output and outcome, in one of the answer. Do you think both are same or both has different meaning?
So output. I think it will depend on the context that we use the terms for. When I say the input and the output of, for
So according to you, it
example,
is almost same. It is same. Okay.
uh,
Let's move to another question. United Nations. You said that you have been a part of Model United Nations. Okay. So we have in recent crisis we have seen that United Nations has not played a much important role in tackling this COVID crisis. So do you think United Nations lost its relevance in present context?
so I think United Nations as an entity has not lost its relevance. It will never lose its relevance because multilateralism is necessary for the future, for creating a better world, especially in today's crisis like rising China or the rising violence in the world or climate change. So that will require the United Nations to function even more strongly. The problem that is arising today is because the United Nations is not very representative in terms of its membership or in terms of the finance that the countries are providing. So we need structural reforms in the UN and more engagement from the nations and the intent to make it work on all the part of the nations.
Okay. So do you know how many official languages of are there in United Nations?
I'm not aware of it, sir. Sorry.
So, do you think, being India such a large population and Hindi spoken in many other countries, Hindi should also be one of the official language of United Nations?
So, firstly, I'm not aware if Hindi is already a part of it or not.
No, it is
Secondly,
not a part. It is not a part of UN official language.
So then I think Hindi should be promoted to be one of the languages. However, so it is very difficult so as to choose Hindi from a set of languages that India has, because then within India a lot of people speak a lot of languages. So to represent India with Hindi would not be completely fair on the diversity of India.
But for your just information, already India has pitched, Hindi as one of the official languages of UN. Okay, let's move. Do you are you aware about the recent happening in Afghanistan?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so do you think India should engage in with Taliban?
So yeah, I think India should engage with the Taliban. As I've already mentioned this, now the stakeholders have multiplied, and the US, being the intermediary, is withdrawing. So to keep dialogue moving, there has to be other players involved and responsible players involved. And
But do
I
you
think,
think, sorry to interfere, but do you think we should engage with a terrorist organization?
so. The perception of Taliban being a terrorist organization from India's point of view is very valid, because the Taliban has created violence and used terror as the main form of its political ideology. However, in Afghanistan, if we look from the point of view of domestic politics, it is a legitimate force of politics for their domestic population. So we need to contextualize our foreign policy accordingly.
Okay, but have you heard about the term good Taliban, bad Taliban?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
So, good Taliban and bad Taliban was a different distinction made by the US along with Pakistan to justify that some part of the Taliban is legitimate and some of it has gone rogue. However, sir, again, this question itself, the answer to this question itself is why the United Nations has not been able to define terrorism as of 2021. This is the big reason that terrorism, the term, changes from perspective to perspective. So what we find illegitimate may be legitimate in their own country. So this is how the distinction was done for uh, um, forwarding their own vested interests. So
So, are you aware about the recent happening in Haiti?
yes, sir.
What is issue going there?
So the president of the country was assassinated, and there is a political instability in the country. I'm sorry, I don't know the details of the matter.
Okay. So, last question for you: why you want to join civil services?
So the civil services is a career like many other careers in India, but it is a career which will provide me with if I choose any other career, like I can choose the NGO also for public service, or I can start my own individual effort to like to forward public service. But the scale and amount of machinery that government involves can can make change at a very mass scale, and that scale is the reason or the incentive for me to join the civil services by because moving government machinery is like moving an elephant. So I think I would like to be a part of that, because if we are able to move that elephant, change will be faster and on a very mass level.
Okay. Thank you, Sayali.